how to kind of set your airplane up for knife edge mixing. Just set your knife edge mixing up. I'm sure probably if you're familiar with if you have an airbag airplane and if you turn on to a knife edge, usually when you're deflecting rudder to hold the knife edge, usually it depends on the plane. Every plane is different. Usually, as you're holding the rudder, you also have to apply a little up or down elevator because the plane will naturally tend to want to turn this way, or maybe it will want to turn this way while it's in knife edge. And obviously, if it's going like this, you're having to hold a little down elevator just to keep it flying straight. Another thing that happens too is that even though these airbag planes with no dehedral and everything, you would kind of think that rudder does not affect the roll axis, but it does. Some planes more than others. So what happens is when you've got the rudder deflected, it kind of wants to roll it back level. Usually it's roll level. I don't know if you've ever seen a plane roll the other direction, but basically the rudder is trying to apply a rolling moment, and so it also happens too for this direction. It'll try to roll it back level. So you also don't want, as you're holding a knife edge, you don't want to be holding a little opposite aileron just to keep it from rolling back level. You want to be able to, if you want to make an input to make it go like that, you want to just give elevator. If you don't want to go that way, or whatever, you just neutralize the elevator. It should fly completely straight wherever you left it. Exactly as if you were flying it and you got the plane balanced and trimmed so that it's flying straight and level with your hands off. I mean, if it was climbing or descending, you don't tolerate that. You use your trim to get that, so that it flies hands off. There's no reason not to do it, when it's flying on a knife edge either. And the way to do that, of course, is to do some mixing so that your rudder is always the master. And you basically want to make it so that when you move the rudder, it also moves the elevator and the ailerons as well to correct for any of this movement in this direction, and also correct it from trying to roll back out. And really the most important one is really the rudder to elevator. So if you really just kind of want to start with it, that'll make the biggest difference. And some planes can have quite a bit of coupling. If you get the rudder, it really starts to go that way or toward the canopy.
Probably you could do dihedral.
Dihedral is the position of the wing, mid-wing, high wing, or low wing, size of the rudder. Apparently, the way they can naturally, designers naturally try to eliminate that coupling is by adjusting the size of the rudder and how far the rudder and the size of the fuselage and that sort of vertical size of the fuselage. So, but even if the plane is designed by an expert to get that all out, it can all be a little different based on the prop you have, the way you balance it. When you balance it, it changes that coupling. So one person, you might balance it a little differently, and you need to changes that. So there's almost always, to get it perfect, regardless of how well designed the plane is, there's always room probably for a little bit of mixing. And so just about every radio I've ever seen, even cheaper radios have a pre-done rudder to elevator and rudder to aileron mix. And of course you can do it yourself. If you have, usually you have like 5 custom ones you can say. This channel is a master, this is the slave, and you can do it manually if you want. But almost all of them already have that built in. You just got to enable it. It's usually inhibited by default. You enable it, and then the trick is you got to tell it first of all which direction. And let's just talk about the rudder to elevator. You got to tell it which direction the elevator should move when the rudder is deflected. And it's possible that when I roll this direction, I'm holding the right rudder. Maybe it goes this way toward the canopy. But who knows? Maybe when it's on this way, maybe it goes the other direction. I mean, you just never know. It depends on the plane. It seems like it usually goes the same direction, but you got to figure out, first of all, the direction that the elevator needs to go. So what you got to do is you got to have no mixes, and also make sure you settle on the prop you want to use. Make sure you've gotten your balance the way you want it. Make sure you always got all your throws the way you want them. Don't be you want to get all your throws and everything all set before you start messing with the mixes, because if you change the throws, you have to change the prop, change the balance. Now you spend all this time getting those mixes. Now the mixes need to be changed. So get all that done first, And then what I like to do is, it can be kind of hard to, you roll, like, okay, left rudder, like down, I need to apply up elevator, So try to only do it one direction the whole way for a whole flight. Just roll to the, just apply, in this case, just apply right rudder, and just look at it. You can fly this way, and you can kind of tell it's coming toward me or away from me. Or if what's even easier is to fly it away from you, directly away from you. Then you can really tell, and or fly directly toward you, you can really tell. But always this rudder same direction for that flight. So you always right rudder, the mix needs to apply down elevator or up elevator, whatever it is. So once you know the direction, you kind of I guess you can kind of tell by how much down or up you're having to hold, to keep it straight and level, to know how much you're going to have to mix. But you really just got to, once you know the direction the mix needs to go, now you've got to kind of just experiment with how much the mix should be, how strong the mix should be. So it has let's see. So basically, I'm trying to think where I can go from here, but I wish we talked about having a camera with a TV or something like that, so you can kind of see the transmitter or whatever. But in fact, I might try to do something like that for put on the web or something, a little video or whatever, or some pictures. But once you know, in the case of like this case, right rudder, and let's say I know that I need to apply down elevator to keep it going straight. So now you go into your mix, you go into your rudder elevator mix, and it'll have a usually the mixes you have two options. You have a linear mix, a linear curve, or you have a curve. Usually like a 5-point curve or something like that. And it's easier just to do the linear curve, the linear mix, just to start with, because it's just a little easier to understand. But the number that you apply to it, for instance, if you tell the mix, when I apply rudder, that right rudder, that you want to apply 5, 5. I'm not for sure, it's probably percent.
Yeah.
So 5% up elevator or down elevator. So let's say I need to hold down elevator to keep it straight while I'm flying. So I tell the mix, when I deflect the rudder to the right, apply 5% elevator. And of course, if this has a lot of mixing, you might need to do 10% or something like that. It's usually on the order. You're probably only. It's only. A lot of values I've run out from some of my plans is more like 2%, 4%. So it's not going to be a lot. Don't go like crank it up 50%. It's not going to be. It's not going to be. In fact, it might be so little that you almost can't see the elevator move.
Is that something you're going to be turning on? Or is it?
Well, that's that. I'll talk about that later, about when to turn this on, or whether to leave it on, or have what switches to enable or disable it. That's kind of the last thing I'll talk about. But so in the case of now the linear curve, the linear mix means that 5% is for the full deflection of the rudder. So if I deflect the rudder, quarter of the way, it's going to deflect the elevator 5% of that. If I go all the way, it's also going to be deflect the elevator 5% of that max deflection. Now what you might find is, let's say when a plane's kind of flying nice and fast, and of course when it's flying fast, you don't need that much rudder to hold it steady, right? So let's say you manage to get that elevator mixing right for that amount of rudder to hold it when you're going fast. Now let's say you're going a little slower, and you got more rudder deflection. Maybe that mix is not quite enough.
It's not really.
If you have a linear mix, you're kind of stuck, because you got to kind of pick. Because it may be that 5% is good when you're kind of flying with this much deflection, flying at a precision aerobatic speed. But then if I were to then give it full rudder and to do like a knife edge loop, at that full rudder deflection, I might find that 5% is not enough, or maybe it's too much. Who knows? And that's where the 5-point curve can allow you to basically make it like this. So at a certain part of the rudder deflection, that mix can be 5%, but maybe at the rest of the deflection, maybe it's more like 10%, or maybe less, maybe it's 1%. And so that's the difference with again, it's more difficult. because because now you got when you're going out and you're flying and you're doing your testing. Okay, which way is it going? You got to kind of think. Okay, well, fly at that. Pick the two speeds that you're going to fly it at. That you want to get this mix right. So you got to fly at one speed, do a bunch of passes, figure out how much elevator it needs to be, and it can be a pain. So it's best really just to start, just kind of pick, where do you want this mix to really work well? Do you want like fast precision, or is it more like slow 3D stuff? I mean, you got to kind of, you can just pick. If you don't want to fool with it, setting up a 5-point curve. But I mean, it can be, and really the hardest part is once you've decided, I've set the mix a certain way, let's say 5%, linear 5%. Now I need to go fly and try it out. It may be too much, maybe not be a little, but now you have to go out and fly and do a bunch of knife edges and see if hey, there's a little too much, or it's not quite enough. But you need to do a couple times to make sure the wind didn't blow it or something. And that's another point is you really need to do it on a dead calm day, because any little bit of wind might blow it. Yeah, it happens every once in a while. But maybe go in the mornings when it's a little more calm. But or especially if you have a real nice calm day, then it's like, I find out myself I just want to fly. But those are the times you really ought to start. Let's play. Get my mix is perfect, But so that's really the kind of the cantankerous part about it, because you fly, make a few passes, okay, then you can land, change the mix, change it from 5 to 6%, take off again, make a couple passes until ideally, when it's flying at the speed you want, to have this mix work well, and you've got the amount of rudder deflection for that speed to hold knife edge straight. You want it to be able to hold at this. What I want to be able to do is just hold rudder only. I don't want to touch my elevator to keep it flying in a straight line. And then once you got the left rudder mix, because it makes it different, you can make the percentage different in the other direction. So now when you get that rudder to the right done, now you switch it to the other side, do some knife edges that direction. I mean, it is a pain, but getting it just a little bit right. You almost never get it perfect, but to get it really, just get it okay, it still makes a significant difference. And then with the rudder to aileron, it's the same thing. It's just it's just a different direction. I guess it's probably best to get your elevator first. Get that mixed pretty well, so that now as you're making your knife edges, you're kind of seeing, okay, is it rolling out? If it is, now you got a different mix, rudder to aileron, and you got to tell it, okay, well when I hold right rudder, I need to apply left aileron, maybe 2%, 3%, or whatever, and then just try to, and again you got to fly, take it off and try it out, and you might have to land and change the setting on the transmitter and pick off again and make a few more passes. But once you get it right, once you get it at least close, when you go roll it to knife edge, you hold rudder. You just only have to hold rudder. There's no aileron. It completely stays vertical the whole way and does not do this or that. It's just, so if you're doing knife edge pass, it's just holding rudder. And what's great too is that it makes things like slow rolls and 4-point rolls significantly easier, because you're only having the exactly good with a slow roll. You're constantly mixing your rudder, and when I say mix here, I mean literally my sticks. I'm mixing these two channels myself. So if all the knife edge mixing is all set up, then that mixing of those two channels, the rudder and elevator, as you're doing a slow roll or doing a 4-point roll, is significantly easier. So it just basically it'll make you look a better flyer, and just like this plane here, this is not too bad. It does have a little bit of mixing, but I have another plane that has pretty bad mixing, and when I can turn the mixing off, and it's just like night and day. And the other thing is like, when do you have the mix on all the time, or do you set up with a switch? Well, this is what I do. I like to have the mixing on all the time, like by default on, so like and what I do, I actually have kind of two flight modes. I have a precision flight mode, so that's fast flight, fast aerobatic flight. So that would be when you take off, and also when I land, and when I'm doing fast aerobatics. So I actually like to have the mix on all the time. So when I have my switches in position, when I take off, that mix is on. Now, the only time I turn off the mixing is when I can do 3D, because and I do have a switch, a two-way switch here, so that in one position that's when I take off, default, the mixes are on, everything's in low rate. That's when I do precision aerobatics. When I flip the switch up, that's when I want to do 3D. I want to do hovering or anything slow, high alpha. And the reason I actually turn the mixes off there is because if you're hovering, and you're, a lot of times you're moving the rudder and your elevator to whatever, and and you don't want them. You want them to be independent. Then, you really want. There's really no coupling that you can kind of, to make it hover nice and straight. You really.
And they move too fast.
Exactly. So what happens if you have the mixing on and you're hovering? When you move the rudder, it's moving the elevator, and it's just a little bit, but it makes a difference. So if you have, it's just a lot easier when you're doing 3D, just not have the mixing on. So my 3D switch, it turns the mixes off, and it also puts everything to high rates, and that's pretty much all it does. It just puts everything in the highest, my 3D, 45 degrees throw rate, and high expo, and turns off the mixes. And then when I'm ready to continue more precision aerobatics, I flip the switch and go back to precision mode, turns the mixes back on. It's pretty much, unless you're doing 3D, that you kind of want those mixes on. So
I got a question.
Yeah.
When you're mixing your, let's say, your right rudder, you say 5%, something. Left rudder, is that always the same, or is that trial by fire as well?
you mean the percentage?
Percentage on left
Yeah.
or right, are they both the same,
No.
or is it always different?
I mean, you can start out the same probably, but you may find that they're quite a bit different. In fact, let
You
me.
can set left different from right.
Yeah. The amount of rudder, the amount of elevator mix, with right rudder can be different than it is with.
You can set that with that rate.
Yeah, all of them can. It's kind of like dual rates, I don't know if when you set a dual rate, you have to tell it, you have to set the dual rate in up, is it like if you set your dual rates for your elevator, you gotta set it for up as well as down, It's not like there's one dual rate that controls up and down elevator. There's an up, there's an up and a down. So same with the mixes. There's a left rudder, right rudder you can have make it 5% elevator, 5% down elevator. If that's
You're
what it
not talking
requires.
about split elevator now.
No. This is all just one channel. I mean, this is, even if you had a servo for each elevator, if you set the transmitter up to have the right tail type, told it, then the mix can operates those two channels as the way they should. So you don't have to do a mix to this elevator and mix to that elevator. You don't have to do that.
That's what I was thinking. If it's different left and right, then you'd have to have different services.
No. You have one servo. I have one servo here.
Yeah.
The only thing because what happens, like with this plane, if I were to hold right rudder, let's say it may kind of roll, it may kind of pitch this direction,
Yeah.
and it maybe takes 5% up elevator to hold it
Yeah.
straight, and it's very possible then when I flip over on knife edge in this direction, it may still go the same direction, but maybe it only takes 2% up elevator to maintain it. Maybe it even goes opposite direction. Maybe this way it goes this way toward the belly.
So it depends on which way the rudder goes,
Yeah.
is depending
Yeah.
on the percentage of the
Right.
elevator.
Right. And with the 5-point curve, it looks even more complicated. So and that's the reason why it's real important to just stick to one direction. The whole flight. Don't even just try to say, let's get the elevator, the mixing, the elevator and aileron mixing when I've got the rudder deflected to the right. Let's just concentrate on it. I'm not even going to just get that direction down. So it's really easy to make a pass. And it's like, was that right? Was that right rudder or right? Or right? You coming towards you. It's like, okay, you got to think about it. So just make pass after pass. Always right rudder. Get that mixing down. When you have a right rudder deflected, and then start making some passes with left rudder, and then it sets so you can set the mix up there. But and if anybody wants me to help them, help them, I'll certainly help. And,
Must be something wrong with it.
Yeah,
But
See, you're not sitting on the airplane. My airplane has a white arc on the airspeed indicator. and you can't lower the flaps if the airspeed's over that way.
Yeah, you see the ailerons. So you see how much the opposite, see it's always opposite the ailerons?
Aileron,
You know,
yeah.
And it's, now that looks like a decent amount of aileron right there, but the rudder is moving a lot. And and notice too, at half deflection, the elevator moves down. Do you see there? But then when I go past max, it goes back to neutral, and that's where, in other words, I don't have a linear mix. I have
Because of the curve?
because I find that at a lot of deflection, almost don't need the mix. You know, it's only at the between zero deflection and half rudder deflection that I need that that elevator mix. So that's what the 5%. In fact, the numbers I'm using here is like from 0 to 50% rudder throw. It's 4% elevator, and then and actually strangely it's negative 4%, so it's positive. It's up elevator. I mean down elevator. And then from 50 to 100% rudder, it actually reduces to 2%, but it goes in the other direction. So
Positive.
yeah. So it may and that's the other thing too. When you set the mix up, where you said left rudder, you set a value, 5% or whatever, but you got to pick a negative or positive, which makes the elevator go 5% up or 5% down. Don't go by don't think negative means down elevator. It may, but it depends on how if you reverse that channel, it may be different. So what's real important is if you know that you should be giving down elevator when you deflect the rudder, actually physically look at it and see if it really is. See if you got the direction right. Because you can't go by the transmitter to know it is negative down or whatever. You get so it may be the negative as well. So anyway. But yeah, say if anybody wants some help, and I'll certainly help out. And I started working on a Word document, kind of with all this, but I didn't finish it. So if I finish it, I'll post it on the website or whatever, so you can download it or whatever. But,
It's a lot of work.
it is a lot of work, but it's even like I say, even just spend a little bit of time, just get it close. It makes a huge difference. Doing 4-point rolls, doing knife edges, doing slow rolls, it's so much easier.
You get more out of your radio, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it makes it very